completes the panel of speakers. We'd now be happy to take questions. If any of you have some questions you'd like to raise, just wait for the microphone to reach you.
I had a question on the Canada registry of those that were exposed to asbestos. What are you thinking of how it would work?
Well, in Ontario, up from I think in the 1980s up to a few years ago, we actually did have workers through the Ministry of Labor in a database in Ontario. So what I think will happen is, more likely than not, it'll probably start by trade. So say you start in the building trades, which we already have some data that we follow our workers, and then more likely than not, it'll be done provincially. Federally, it might be a little bit too difficult, but if there is like a national strategy, every province through their provincial health organizations could start recording any worker that's been exposed to asbestos. Maybe you can start it with your family doctors when you go in. You can start it from there. They take a work history. You can do a chest x-ray. You can do it that way. But there's no reason that the information that's there now could not go into a national registry. It's all fragmented across the province, so across the provinces. So the information's there. It just needs to be pulled together. Now, the Occupational Cancer Center in Ontario has actually put in for funding to start to create a plan and a mechanism getting to a registry. So we're moving along that way.
Yeah, Eric, first up, those figures that I got them from the Australian Council of Trade Unions, so don't blame me, okay? I'm prepared to have a check and have a look at that. Carmine, I wanted to ask you about the upcoming ban, yes, which sounds good, but you did mention earlier that it was some time back, not that long ago back, it was political suicide for any politician to consider a ban. Will Justin Trudeau be facing the wrath of anybody, or?
No. It's interesting that our last election, the Liberal government had power in Canada from 1992 to around 2006. The asbestos lobby was tied to the old Liberal Party. This new group of MPs that have taken over in Canada don't have that baggage. They're not tied to the historical association they had with these entities and these people. This is a new beginning. I mean, if people even go look at the composition of the new government, the ethnic breakdown, the age group, it's completely different. They're not part of that old school. The other thing, they have the other parties, the NDP, and even the Conservatives now have seen the writing on the wall. Social groups are on them. Medical, lawyers, victims. UDIS is group. So there's so many people now. It's political suicide for them not to go for this ban. And also, there's no more opposition, essentially, for it. So it's coming. Just when? It'll happen, hopefully very soon, because it's there.
Hi, Celeste Monfortin. Earl, this is a question for you. Given that I just have so much respect for your work and how you capture the images of workers, I'm wondering how might your art change when you're thinking about a population of individuals affected by asbestos, and it's not necessarily the workers, it's the wives and the children?
Yes, I think it offers greater potential for telling the story. First of all, there has to be a trust factor, and this is my second year appearing here, and gradually over time, I hope I'm invited into your homes to meet your families, to visit your bedside, to follow your success stories in confronting the tough, powerful interests that are political and in industry. And so it's a collaboration more than anything. And when I would photograph in a factory, people would know I was a representative of the UAW or the Textile Workers Union. The word would spread around the plant floor, and I would be welcomed to take pictures. They were called almost command performances, where I was asked to photograph. And that's the best possible kind of circumstances to be invited. And I just want to add one more thing to my talk. I neglected to thank publicly my staunchest advocate, my wife, Deborah Stern, retired from, Deborah, would you stand, please? Retired coal miners advocate who has always helped me do what I do. And for 30 plus years, it's been magnificent. Thank you.
If I can add something and an advice to Linda and the ADAO. When ABEVA was created in 2000, one of the first things we put on our agenda was to create an asbestos fund. And for 7 years, our plans were derailed by the politicians. And then one day, we discovered that the wife of the Prime Minister, her best friend, was diagnosed with mesothelioma. Through the wife of Mr. Verhofstadt, we got some traction, and she made it possible. I guess on the pillow, she was having some kind of a conversation with her husband, but that was a pivotal time for the Prime Minister to change his mind, and we finally got on April 1st, 2007, that was when the Prime Minister signed the creation of the Asbestos Fund. So.
I have a comment, I have a question for Agatha. I was watching the slide of the destruction of the Ethernet factory. My question is, was there any asbestos abatement in the factory before it was demolished?
In Casale Monferrato?
No,
In Osasco, they didn't put under safety measure before demolished. No. Fernanda knows
I had to interview. In that moment, I was the inspector, as the labor inspector, in charge to inspect asbestos in the state of São Paulo, and I stopped, yes, the demolition, and Walmart, thanks to Barry, they flew to São Paulo to learn what was going on because they were in a hurry to inaugurate the big store before Christmas, yes? And they were very, very concerned about this. And they said, but we don't know the legislation in Brazil, yes? And we said, this is the legislation, the labor code, and you should follow this. In that moment, coincidentally, I knew that I was pregnant in the same day, Walmart, Eternity Demolition, and my daughter, Elena, that I would like to name her Eternitas, the eternity, but she is very offended when I tell her, for this is only Elena. But all the debris, all the waste, they were planning to jump to disposal in a lake. And we stopped the unions, the metal workers unions from Osasco. They denounced, and we followed the trucks that were going to display all the waste. And finally, Walmart paid to dispose in a place for industrial dangerous waste. After this experience, we could write the law in Brazil that all asbestos waste should be disposed in dangerous landfills for dangerous waste. It was an experience.
This was important in that the Brazilian economists then calculated that the life cycle cost of asbestos cement is not competitive if you count the disposal costs, and given that the disposal has to be in a hazardous waste dump when the buildings reach the end of their lives and they're demolished. So I think we're going to conclude this session now.
Stay there for a second.
Linda, Mistress of Ceremonies will now tell you what's going on.
I just wanted to thank everyone for today for making, I think, our 12th conference really the most successful one ever. But there are 5 people that need to be singled out and a team in the back. We'll call this the 3 o'clock in the morning team. Sue Ann and your team were setting up at 3 to make this happen because we didn't have access to the room. Thank you.
Stand up.
And there are 5 ADAO volunteers that have been spectacular, led by Ellen, who's going to give you some remarks. But come up here, Ellen. I want people, she has worked for 9 months behind the scene. Emily and Courtney in the back have been shuttling, running, doing everything. And as we often write, we are one. We have the Tucker family, and they've been coming, I think it's for 4 years, maybe. And you have a very hard job, Megan. You are the timekeeper. And Robin, if anybody follows social media, has been me for the entire day. And thank you. No one really knows. We'll keep the. But ladies, will you stand up so we can thank you?